control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, 'cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you for listening at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, and on Revolution Radio. We welcome you to tonight's show as we broadcast out of Uncle Jimbo's cabin in the Great White North of British Columbia, live on this Friday night, early Saturday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we broadcast 3 hours a night, 7 days a week, because we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the weird, the strange, the supernatural, the paranormal, and so much more. Like our music on the Spaced Out Radio side? Hey, go to our website, spacedoutradio.com. You'll hear the guitar god himself, Ron "Bumblefoot" THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Check out a couple of his music videos by clicking on the Bumblefoot banner. He is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we'd like to say hello to everyone listening in the Revolution Radio chat room on the High Plains Talk Radio Network, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans at Euphoria Chronicles, Chronicles of the Unknown, Forest Moon Paranormal, TCPS, and our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. Have you signed up for the Spaced Out Radio SOR Space Travelers yet? No? Well, I think it's time. It's only $5 a month, and with that, your name gets entered into private monthly draws, access to private group interviews, special section on our website, and so much more. While on our website, you can read the latest blogs. Mine this week has been about where does time go? And you can check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest in weird news. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. The iTunes app, Spirit Story Box. It's the official ghost hunting app of Spaced Out Radio, and the New Agora newspaper. It's the official paper of this show. Remember, if you're a listener of Revolution Radio, it is the largest non-profit online radio station going on the internet. Take the time to visit freedomslips.com and donate today. There is a whole collective genre out there that most of us would look at with either a blank stare or just scratching our heads. The genre is the crowd that has this bloodlust for horror movies. From slasher films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre to Freddy haunting your dreams, it's queasy at best for most and utterly unwatchable for others. But for this crowd, it's like watching their own private Super Bowl as they cheer on their fictional villains. I know for me personally, I have a fear of the ocean ever since I was 7 years old. Why? Because my sisters, who were older than me, forced me at 7 to sit down and watch Jaws. You know, the simple sounds? Yeah, you're hearing it right now, aren't you? Matt Molgaard is a studious researcher of the horror industry. Tonight, we will learn about why these cult classics continue to bring millions of fans to theaters everywhere. Matt Molgaard, welcome to Spaced Out Radio on a Friday night. How are you doing tonight?
I'm alive, so I cannot complain.
Appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy man with your family as well as with, the horror genre. This is a real cult following that you delve with. What was your first horror movie you ever watched?
You actually mentioned it. It was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. 1986. I was about 6 years old. And it's kind of funny. I actually watched it from my room through a keyhole so that I could see the front room as my dad watched it. And I sat there on my knees staring at that movie the whole time, and the hell sense.
That's pretty awesome, man. I know that this is some pretty scary stuff, and you know what? There's a lot of part about the horror film, and I got to admit, I'm not the biggest fan. I love the suspense films, though, and we'll get into those. But when it comes to horror, when you saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time, you were 7 years old or 6 years old, as you were just saying. What really stood out, and what really created that whole love for the industry of horror film for you?
There's a gritty realism about that film. Tobe Hooper did an amazing job. If you look at that film today in the genre, and the landscape is just flooded with found footage movies. Long before all these paranormal activities and all of these found footage movies came out, you had a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, it's filmed in standard fashion, but it's so grimy. It's such a dirty film that it feels real. It feels like you get wrapped up in it. And there was something about that just kind of pulled me in. And I remember thinking that it was such a grotesque movie. But then as I got older and I watched it more, I realized there really there's no insanely graphic violence that happens in the film. I think there's one scene where Leatherface hangs a girl up on a meat hook. And outside of that, all of the violence, all of the insanity really kind of happens off screen. So it kind of fascinated me that my mind would lead me to believe that I was watching this gruesome movie, when in truth, so much of it is left up to your imagination. It's a crazy thing, and a lot of good filmmakers can do that. They don't have to show you everything. They can create this suspense. They can set things up, and then they just let you run with it. They let your mind take you wherever you're going to go with it, and that can be a scary thing, and it's strangely addictive. I'd love to tell you exactly why it was so addictive, but I can't do that. I can't. All I know is from that point on, I couldn't stay away from horror. I just could not do it.
See, I was a big fan growing up of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. But do you remember in Dream Warriors, and then right after that, Dream Warriors was number 3, and right after that, Will Smith did a rap song about a nightmare on my street. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
I have to tell you this, man, because this scared me. I remember I always used to sleep. I was, I think, in grade 11 or grade 12 at that time, so it would have been 1990, 1991 when that came out. And here I am, I go to sleep, and for about 3 weeks in a row, it didn't happen every night, but every second or third night, I would wake up with my radio playing, because I left my radio on at night. I liked listening to music, falling asleep. And every night between 2 and 3 in the morning, that song by Will Smith would wake me up. It scared the living crap out of me. And I actually, for about, I'm going to say 6-7 months, I did not play any music besides my old cassette deck. That's how I'm dating myself here. I used to bring out I had the double cassette deck Ghetto Blaster, And I used to make sure that I played that and fell asleep to that because I knew that damn song wasn't going to come on. But that's what horror does to people. It creates, for a lot of people, that nightmare, that freakish sense that, oh my God, what if this is actually real? What do I do if all of a sudden Freddy jumps out of my closet, or at that time I had a waterbed? Is that what you really enjoyed about the whole classic genre?
Absolutely. I think that fear is one of the very few things that is completely universal. Everyone is afraid of something. Everyone is afraid of something. And when you find something that really catches you, there's a strange, it's like an injection of adrenaline that hits you. And even though you might be terrified, you love to feel alive. You really feel alive in that moment. And I think that one of the crappy things about growing up is, we become desensitized and we lose a lot of that. So things don't scare us the same way anymore, but especially when you really get first introduced to the genre, just the shock of it all. And it's so, some films are so visceral, and it's crazy because you really can't imagine some of these things happening. I've always loved John Carpenter's Halloween because it's a disruption of comfort. You take this perfect suburban area, it's Haddonfield in the film, it's Pasadena in real life where they shot it, but it just looks beautiful, and it looks like the kind of place that no matter what, you're always safe. When you go to bed at night, you don't have to worry about locking your doors. And then 1978 rolls around, and all of a sudden, here's Michael Myers, and he walks right into suburbia, and he just shatters it. He completely destroys that sense of comfort. And movies like that, even though Michael Myers would go on to, he would essentially become a supernatural force. You can't kill the man. I want to say the man, but he's not a man, really. You can't kill him. So it changed over time. But in that first film, all you have is this faceless killer who just came into this perfect little serene place that you've always felt comfortable, and he crushes it. He just completely destroys it, and that's interesting to me.
Are you sure it wasn't just a bad day at the office, or just an anger management problem with Michael Myers?
Yeah, it could easily be gone.
Hey, are you on a headset? Because you're cutting out on me here, my friend. I am not hearing you. You might want to unplug your headset if you got a headset. We're talking with Matt Molgaard tonight. He is a horror aficionado out of California, studies, researchers, the whole horror movie industry and the horror industry as well. Matt, how's your signal now?
How are you? Can you hear me now?
I sure can. Headset causing a little bit of issue there?
I have no idea what that was, to be completely honest with you.
Weird. All of a sudden you were like stuck in a barrel by, I don't know, Jason or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of times we don't spend a lot of time on this show because we're too busy talking about aliens and ghosts and Bigfoot. But every now and again I want to mix it up, and I think this is such an interesting topic because there is a real difference between what the horror genre is and the suspense genre. See, I'm more suspense. Paranormal Activity was a great movie. The Sixth Sense, another one would have been, I'll get laughed at for this, but the suspense of the Blair Witch Project, absolutely
brilliant
had me
film.
Shaking in my boots, And when I look at movies like that, I much more enjoy something along those lines rather than the good old slasher films, or anything to do with sharks. Because I'm a meal, man. I am not an appetizer if I'm out swimming. I'm a meal, and. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the slasher type horror and gore, or do you like the suspense?
I'm really wide open. I honestly, I love it all. And to me, suspense films, they just bleed right over into the horror genre, especially the films you just listed. And I think it's because They do one thing. They all have one thing.
We seem to have lost you again there, my friend. I don't know what's with your phone, because it was so clear. Do we have you now?
Yeah.
Now
Do we have me now?
We got you now.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to move from this position.
Well, goodness, I hope it's, I'm just checking to see if it was my Skype, and my Skype seems to be doing just fine. So it all of a sudden sounds like you're throwing your hand right over top, and we're getting muffled, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's strange. I got some full bars here, so I don't know what's happening here. Maybe some paranormal activity's happening right now.
Well, you know what? Get the hockey mask, man. Get the hockey mask, because it is time. So we missed a little bit of what you said there. We were talking about you really enjoy the suspense side of things because it is something that really, really gets the goosebumps going. Do you prefer that? I'll ask you the question again. Do you prefer that suspense over the slasher film?
Sometimes. I'll say that. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. I think it really depends on how well executed the film is. Paranormal Activity, extremely well executed. Blair Witch Project, extremely well executed. But at the same time, you do have films that are a lot more intense. Films like A Nightmare on Elm Street. There's not a lot of mystery there, but it's still a terrifying film. So I really just have a very broad spectrum that I enjoy. It's harder to find a style of film that can even be related to the macabre that I'm not a fan of.
Is that because the suspense seems like it could be a little bit more reality, whether it is like Blair Witch, whether it's Paranormal Activity or The Fourth Kind or something along those lines, because, everybody loves a good owl that turns into a gray alien, or even the Aliens trilogy. We're looking at things where people are looking at things that could be plausible. I mean, we know that Jason isn't going to, jump out of the, Crystal Cove. We know that Freddy isn't going to come through our dreams and mutilate us. But when it comes to the suspense, like what Blair Witch was, or Paranormal Activity, where we have people experiencing poltergeists and demonic activity, or even the old movie Ouija, we have these movies that are out there that are really pushing the limits of what could possibly be reality. To me, I find that more scary.
Killing. And
Hey, my friend, your phone is acting up again. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go on to Skype and I'm going to call you right back to see if we can get a better connection. All right? Okay. So bear with me here. And you, if you are listening out there, what I would like you to do is I would like you to take the time, and of course my Skype now is going into non-responding mode. What I would like to do is I would like to remind you, we were talking with Matt Molgaard tonight. He is a researcher and a horror movie aficionado. He writes about these, he writes blogs, he writes editing, writes quite a bit of stuff on this topic. It is a very good topic indeed, because we've all seen the horror movies. We've all seen what goes on with getting scared. And let's face it, when we're teenagers, you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you want to have that person to cuddle up with. You want that person to be right there to save your behind in case something happens. All right, we're having a little bit of Skype issue here. Matt, are you still with us?
I am, and I have an idea. I've got a different number that you can call me on that might help us out.
All right, let's see what we can do here, because I don't really want to give it out on the air. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call you. We're fine right now. Okay.
Okay.
And is this your cell phone that we're on right now?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
I'm going to send you a quick text because I want to continue this interview. All right. And that way, you guys can all hear me text here, even though my phone is on silent, so you won't be able to hear a damn thing. But that's all right. Sometimes we have to just run the gamut here. This is what live radio is all about. Oh, by the way, Bill Cardwell in the SOR Space Travelers goes and posts a picture of a clown that reads, "I'm under your bed waiting." Damn it, I hate clowns. I hate clowns. Let's roll with this while we have signal. I have texted you, so you can text me the other number, and then I'll call you back on that one. But let's roll with that. Clowns, sharks, people running around with hockey masks, it scares people. Why do you think clowns have really become from a children's animated 3D person to all of a sudden this God-given fear that most of us, absolutely hate being around them?
You know what's interesting? I've never really that was when the whole clown thing started to fly. And then ever since I started reading up on his story, I've never been successful with clowns myself since then.
All right, we're going to end this part of the call. I'm gonna hang up on you, and I'm gonna call you right back here while you text me your phone number, Matt, because we are having phone line difficulties here. I don't know why all of a sudden that would happen. I talked to every guest right before the show, and it was absolutely perfect. The audio was perfect. And then we get this. All of a sudden, showtime, and things want to start perking up. Getting a little cranky with the phones. Dun, dun, dun. It happens. We can't say that. We have a lot of good luck on this show to try and make things happen here. So we're going to try and add Matt back to the phone. Hopefully this works. We got to get him back. This guy is knowledgeable. I've been looking for a good horror movie guy. If you hear the ringing, I apologize. Just plug your ears a little bit. But I've been waiting for... All right, let's see if this is much clearer, because so far we're sounding good. Good. See if we got a better connection this time.
That's good, because my text wouldn't go through to you for some reason.
Oh, probably because
it's an international thing.
Probably. Damn international Canadians ruining everything. It's the horror of international calling. Absolutely. You know what? It's sounding good so far. But as I was saying, we missed the clown portion again. So have you studied up on clowns in your research of why all of a sudden there's been a turn for them becoming very evil creatures, like that one that's wandering around the one town, I believe in Wisconsin there, where, he's dressed up in black and white, and, the police actually had to go visit him to see if he was stirring up crap or just being a clown?
I've looked into it a lot, and what's interesting is it's really kind of hard to find facts, especially about that case, why that is happening, why this guy is doing that. But it's also strange because he looks menacing, but he's never aggressive, he's never abrasive, he's just there to creep people out, and obviously it's working. So it's a strange thing.
It's totally working, and I got to tell you, man, even looking at the pictures where he's like under a bridge or something like that, just kind of slowly meandering, I mean, that just gives me a chills, and I'm 2,000 miles away. I mean, I got wild animals in my backyard, man. I got UFOs flying over like I did the other night. That doesn't scare me, but that damn cloud scares the living hell out of me.
Well, that clown is real. That clown is very real, and like I say, it really kind of goes back to that sense that the things that are rooted in reality are definitely more frightening than the real fantastical, over-the-top stuff. And clowns are real, no matter what. You can't deny that. So, you see something like that, and it's creepy. It creeps you out.
Now that we have a better connection, because we're running nice here right now, one of the things that I asked you a little bit earlier that our audience may have missed was the suspense side of things. The things that people could look in your mind and like, that could happen to me. The movie Aliens, like I said, Blair Witch, you're wandering around the forest. I know there's enough forests around here, where I am, because I'm surrounded by them. Looking in the forest, you don't know what the hell is moving sometimes, because I don't even have street lights on my street. That's how dark it is and how I'm in the wilderness. But, I get scared sometimes going outside. I'll give you an example. The other night, after the show, I take my dog out, and he walks about 4 or 5 feet into the backyard, and all of a sudden he stops, looks, and starts growling. You don't know what's there. And it's that suspense that is absolutely freaking me out. So, I know I asked you what you prefer, suspense or the slasher film, but when it comes to suspense, do you think people get a little bit more freaked out by that because there is that possibility that it could happen to them?
Yes, absolutely. There's no doubt. When you watch a movie, like we'll go right back to A Nightmare on Elm Street. We know we're never ever going to encounter a serial killer or a child killer in our sleep. We're not going to do that. But when you watch a movie like Blair Witch Project, you can see that could happen. It could happen to you. It's especially the finale is unexplainable. That's left up to interpretation, but it's real enough that you can say, I never want to go out into the woods. I want to stay out of there because I don't need to end up in some crazy house that's got something going on that might potentially put me in danger.
That's why I've always wondered why there isn't a good Bigfoot film. There's not a good one out there.
There's one good one out there. There is one good one out there, and as it just so happens, Ed Sanchez, the man who made the Blair Witch Project, is the same man who made that movie. The movie's called Exists, and it is a brilliant film. It is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best movies I've seen in the last 5-6 years. Amazing film, and it's nice because there's a lot of suspense to the film, but unlike Blair Witch Project, Sanchez gives you a little bit of visuals. He gives you some substance to see. So then when you actually get a look at Bigfoot, and the costume is absolutely, it's unreal. It is brilliant. When you see it, it scares the hell out of you. It's just, it's crazy. I highly recommend that film.
So, Matt, you've seen literally probably a couple thousand horror films over your time as you've been studying them. Did you think that you would become a student of horror?
No, I never did. But to be completely honest, when I was growing up, I was very aimless. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. High school came around, and I was terrified because I knew, man, in a few years I'm going to be an adult. I'm going to face the real world, and I just had no idea what I wanted to do. And I actually just kind of fell into this because I've always been decent with words. I've always, in English classes, I aced those. I've always been a pretty fair writer. And actually back in 2006, I had started a mixed martial arts magazine with a friend of mine. And that was when I started writing a lot. And of course, I've loved horror forever. And then it just kind of clicked. I would rather be writing about horror. I would rather be writing about this emotion that we all deal with, as opposed to this niche sport that only so many people see. And from there on, that was it.
How many movies do you think you've seen?
Oh man, I would guess somewhere in the probably between 3,000 and 5,000. Now, that would be a fair guess. I watch at least 10 films a week, and I've been doing that for a long time.
Do you look at some that are just so ridiculous that you're like, come on, man, that is so predictable? Or do you think that there is enough creativity still out there to try and make a good blood and guts film?
Oh, the creativity exists, but I see films constantly that leave me shaking my head and saying, what am I watching here, you know? And there are some movies that you know everything that is going to happen well before it happens. And those movies, you know, they're disappointing because you always want a surprise, you want a shock, you want some fright out of the film, you want something that leaves you feeling disconcerted. But some films, they just don't do that. And I think most of the time when I run into that from filmmakers who don't have extensive schooling, who don't have, you know, a real thorough knowledge of actual filmmaking. Those are the guys that usually make the movies that fall a little bit flat.
What about sequels? You know, there are so many movies out there, even in the horror, that just don't deserve a sequel. They were perfect the first time around, and it seems like the more sequels they add, the more they end up looking like part of the Police Academy series. You know, and you never want to be that. You know what I'm saying? Do you think that some of these movies, and I'll give you an example, I don't think The Blair Witch should have had a sequel. I don't think Paranormal Activity should have had a sequel, even though they were touching on something completely different. But that's just me. You know, what do you think about that?
I think that sometimes maybe one sequel is good. You know, I think that there are ways that you can carry on with a story and keep that continuity alive, and you can watch two movies back to back and it can feel like one film. That's when a sequel gets it right. The problem is it's very rare that happens. I mean, it's very, very rare. At the same time, I understand why studios do it. I understand that, you know, when you put out a film and it makes 50 times its budget, I understand why studios say, we've got to pump another one out. That doesn't mean I like it, because usually I don't. But there are some that, you know, I have personal favorites. You know, I've mentioned the Halloween franchise. Those sequels, most of
I think we just lost Matt. This is getting very horror movie with him on Skype tonight. Very horror movie. Let's see what's happening here. We're going to try and reconnect with him right now because his call just dropped. Dropped there. Somebody doesn't want this to be an interview tonight. Kind of weird. Let's get a hold of him. There's the ringing sound.
Dave.
You know what? I got to tell you something. And this is, I don't know what's happening with the phone lines here, because if you could read my mind, there's a lot of F-bombs going off right now, because you know you want a clean and concise show. But I have to tell you this, and I'll tell our listeners too. A few of them have heard it before. Every time I have tried to do a horror or religious type show where we talk about Satanism or something along those lines, something always happens during this show.
We're going to fix it right now. We're going to fix it right now, because I'm going to give you my number right now over the air. I really don't give a damn if anybody feels compelled to call me. Right. So if you've got 530 671 3283.
All right, don't repeat it. I got it. And what we will do then is let's just continue on, and then if the phone drops again, I'll call you at the other home number.
That sounds perfect.
Now, where were we? I think
we were getting frustrated with our connection.
Yeah, no kidding. This is a bad first date here, man, and I apologize to you for the technical. I don't know if it's your phone line, Skype tonight, you know, because Skype can, let's face it, Skype can be a little bit of a dick sometimes, but that's okay.
A lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot. But that's the way we have to do it. It saves a lot of international calling. But let's get back to it here. We were getting into the whole suspense side. We were talking about sequels and whether
We
or
were
not
talking sequels, so that's right.
absolutely. And you were getting into I believe, the Halloween franchise.
Okay, the Halloween franchise is perfect because I think the first two films, they bleed into one another very well. Obviously, there are some hiccups in there, but it works well. The story carries on. It's the same evening, basically, that the first film occurs in, and it carries on. That's a good sequel. It's not a great sequel. It was clearly, everything was ramped up. There was a lot more gore. It was a lot more about shock value with that film. And that kind of took away from what John Carpenter was doing in his first film. But the story feels good there. Now, you jump over to, let's say, A Nightmare on Elm Street. The second film is everything is wrong about it. And I still like it just simply because I love Freddy Krueger. He scares the hell out of me, so I still enjoy it. But there are a lot of rules that are established in the first film that are completely broken in the second film. And I think that you can't do that. I think that a lot of times filmmakers forget that their audience is intelligent. I think that they forget that we're paying attention. We're following these films. We have something, we're invested in these films. And sometimes they forget that, and they give us some crap. And that happens far more than those rare gems, the quality sequels, unfortunately.
So we see franchises popping up. We've seen the Halloween franchise. We've seen the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, the Friday the 13th, just to name a few. Then we have someone like rocker Rob Zombie, who just gets absolutely sick and twisted with his view and take on horror. What is the difference between a classic franchise like that and something that Rob Zombie is trying to do?
Well, Rob Zombie is a really interesting case because I think about 90% of what Rob does is an homage, a tribute. It's a nod to the films that he grew up with. It's a nod to the stories that scared him. I think he loves to do that. He's openly stated that, he likes to pay homage to these people that had a real effect on him as a child. So a lot of times when you watch a Rob Zombie film, he's really not trying to do anything different except intensify everything. And he has a bad habit, and I think this probably relates to his childhood. He has a bad habit of turning all of his characters into these very cliche white trash individuals. They can't speak one sentence without dropping 1,000 cuss words in them. They're not likable people. And I think a lot of the reason that Zombie catches a lot of flack for some of his movies is because his characters are not likable. And it's important. You have to care about someone in a movie to care about the movie. If you don't care about any of the characters, you don't give a damn when they get killed. And when you look at the Friday the 13th franchise, after the first couple movies, which were not great movies, but they were successful in making you not want to go camping. They were good at that, but they never gave us good characters. After a while, everybody was the same. You had these cardboard cutouts. You had a jock in there, and you had a slut in there, and you have a comedian in there, and you've got a stoner in there, and that gets old. It's hard to like those characters because it's just somebody following a blueprint without adding any kind of inventiveness to those characters. And when you do that, you just butcher the chance of creating something truly special, which is, I hate that. And I hate speaking about Rob Zombie in any kind of negative way because he's very passionate about the genre, and I admire the hell out of him because he loves horror and he loves to interact with fans. But I think that he sometimes forgets that characters, they have to be at the forefront. They've got to be special to us. They've got to win us over. You know, in John Carpenter's Halloween, we loved Laurie Strode because she was a good, pure human being. She was a decent human being with a good heart. You can't say that about Rob Zombie's Halloween. You know, it's just not the same. They're not the same characters that he creates, and it really hurts the film overall. And when he remade Halloween, I applaud him for trying to go back and give us some history into who Michael Myers was. But I can't get too into it because at the end of the day, the characters aren't special to me. I can't relate to them in any way. They're not real. They don't feel real. They never feel pure. And that's damaging to a film.
How do you bond with a horror film? Say, how do you bond with Jason? How do you bond with Freddy or Michael Myers? I'm having trouble figuring that out.
That goes right back to shitty characters. That's how you bond with those guys. You start to root for the villain when you realize that all the characters are crap. When you don't like a character, you start to look at the clock and say, well, I hope this guy gets his head cut off in the next 10 minutes because I'm tired of him. And that's when you create a connection with a villain. And I don't know when that really started. It's hard to pinpoint a moment when that actually started to happen. But I think that Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th embody that idea that, well, these characters are so crappy that let them die. You know, let's see a creative way that Jason kills this guy. I hope he throws this broad in a sleeping bag and slams her against a tree because she's annoying as hell, you know, and when you can't relate to a character, you've got to find something that you can try to relate to in a film. And guys like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, who have been around for decades now, we become more attached to them than to their victims because their victims are just not likable. And it's terrible to say that, but it's true. They're not likable, and that leaves us rooting for somebody in the film, and it's usually the psychopath who's going to do some crazy damage.
I am killing myself laughing on this side, you know, because just listening to you, I mean, it sounds so WWE, the way you just explained it, you know, that you're cheering for the bad guy. You know, the reason why Bret Hart left the, you know, WWE because he was pissed off Stone Cold Steve Austin became the superstar and he was the bad guy. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's almost the exact same way. Let me ask you this, though. Is there anywhere that a horror or slasher film shouldn't go? What are taboo topics on those, in your mind?
Children. I hate to see any kind of film, really. That's an area that I think when you put a child in danger in a film, and I don't mean a 17-year-old child, I mean, you know, a 10-year-old child, a younger child who is essentially helpless. When you put them in a film and you kill this child or you abuse this child, you're getting into territory that I can't embrace. I can't get into that. I don't. That's the kind of thing, that's one of the very rare things in horror that will turn me off immediately. And it's very, very, very rare that you will see movies where children are involved and they are on the victim side of things where a filmmaker actually treats that with care. It's very rare. A few years ago, a movie called Intruders came out, and it was a very good film. There is a child in the film at the heart of the story that is a victim, but the way the filmmaker handled it, he was very delicate with the film. He made sure that, you know, there was no on-screen punishment being inflicted on this child. And in the end, the child makes it out. The child is safe, survives. It was just very well done. But those are rare things. You don't see that very often. It seems like people now are more inclined to throw a child into a film just for shock value. And I think it's maybe that goes just to the fact that we have such tiny attention spans now. We need big explosions and we need these jaw-dropping scenes. I think filmmakers think, well, hey, I'm making a horror movie. Let me throw a kid in there. This is going to make everybody's jaw drop. Well, it does, but it's not for the right reason. It's not for a good reason. We're not, me personally, I don't admire that technique. I don't like that maneuver. I think it's kind of tacky. And for me, honestly, I think that's really probably just about the only area that I don't like to mess with when it comes to horror.
What about in a movie like Poltergeist? You had the young children in there. It was made for realism because a lot of people, believe it or not, are experiencing that same type of activity in their homes. We have the young girl being sucked into the television. You know, her parents should have tried turning the channel or something, maybe going to cable instead of the rabbit ears. But you know, you look at something like that, or the movie Children of the Corn, where the characters are based on children. Is there a place for children in horror?
There is a place, and those are actually two interesting examples, because you take Poltergeist, and even though Tobe Hooper is credited as the director of that film, Steven Spielberg actually made a lot of that movie. And I think maybe it was his savvy, maybe it was just his understanding of the audience. He treats that film in a way that it all feels believable. It doesn't feel offensive. Even though, I believe her name is Carrie Ann in the movie, even though she becomes victimized by this poltergeist in this house, that is something that is out of our control. That is not something that, there's no big bad guy stomping through the house coming right after her. That's a supernatural force. And that's something that, you know, we can't necessarily, it's harder to understand that aspect. And it creates almost this level of ambiguity where you're confused, you're frightened, you understand what's happening, but you just can't you can't wrap your head around why this child was targeted. But at the same time, because that child was targeted, it's terrifying, because a poltergeist, it can pick anybody in the house. It can do anything it wants in there. So that one that's a great example of a movie that uses some class, even though it victimizes a child. Now, Children of the Corn is interesting because in Children of the Corn, we actually have children as villains. And over the years, that's become kind of a subgenre of its own, evil children movies. And those, to me, I kind of like them. I just get a kick out of them, because I kind of feel like it's about damn time the kids got a little bit of revenge on the grown-ups. You know, you see kids getting brutalized in movies, you don't want to see that. So when a movie like Children of the Corn comes around, yeah, you kind of, you separate yourself from the movie. You say, okay, we're in a place now where this is not really likely to happen, but it's still a little bit believable. And finally, the kid is going to get the last laugh. So those are real interesting. They're interesting films. They're very interesting films.
I have kids, man. The Disney Channel does enough to put parents and adults under the bubble. That's for sure. you know, let's go through this then. You've watched over 5,000 movies. In your opinion, what makes a good horror film, start to finish?
Well, you have to start on a positive note. I think that if you don't have anything that you can really, you need to be comfortable, because if you barrel into a horror film and it's just brutal right off the bat, you never get lulled into that place where you feel safe. So I think it's important to start in a safe zone. I think it's important to establish good characters that we like, characters that we care about, we relate to. We look at them and say, yeah, I remember I did that once myself. And then you slowly introduce the darkness. You introduce the opposing side of that. And you need those two elements to run parallel to one another. And you need them to slowly work their way to an intersection, so that by the time that they do intersect, you understand that the bad guy is bad for a reason. He's bad. He's doing this, and this is why he's doing it. Whether he's a maniac with no true motive, whether he's getting revenge because a child told their parents that he abused them, whatever the case may be, you hate that guy. And at the same time, on the other side of the coin, really care about our protagonists. You really care about them. You want them to survive. So when when their paths meet, that showdown is pivotal. We have to really, it's like you could equate it to a football game. You want your team to win, and you've been watching this game. You're in the fourth quarter, and it's all tied up, and all you want to do is see your team win. And that's kind of what happens with horror. When you get to that final act, all you want to do is see the hero survive. The bad guy, he's vanquished. He's out of there. That's how you do it. Because you have to have, well, I shouldn't say that. You don't have to, but I think it's important to have a feel-good moment. I think you need to wrap things up and leave people feeling a little bit as though good prevailed over evil. I think that is very important. It can be terrifying when good does not prevail over evil, and I think a lot of times filmmakers will make movies like that with the intention of creating sequels, and sometimes that can work, sometimes it can't. But for me, it's really just about building a connection with our protagonists and understanding the dangers that our antagonist really poses, and seeing those paths working toward each other. And really, it all comes down to the finale. What happens at the end is what's gonna leave you leaving the theater feeling like, okay, everything is right in the world, or leave you walking out of the theater looking over your shoulder paranoid. And it's good to leave the theater walking over your shoulder paranoid, but sometimes it feels almost as if stories do not reach a true conclusion when that happens. That it's kind of a tough thing to deal with sometimes. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
But some of them seem so repetitive. We always see the person running away and the main killer character who is walking, not even jogging, yet they always catch up to the person who is running. And a lot of them always seem so stereotypical that there's something in the closet, but we got to go in there. Where's the imagination? Where's the suspense behind that?
There's not much. There really isn't much. And that's why you have to look for amazing filmmakers. The thing about horror is there's a lot of good horror movies out there, but there are very few great horror movies out there. I mean, great horror movies, you could probably sit back and count them on one hand. Maybe you might get to 6 or 7 if you dig real deep for it. But the lack of imagination is what leaves all these other movies kind of in this middle ground. If it's a well-shot film, if it's well-edited, if the cinematography is great, if you've got all these good things going about the movie, you can appreciate all those things. But a lot of times they still don't have much in the way of ingenuity and inventiveness. They don't have those things. And that's what separates a good horror movie from a great horror movie. The bad ones, they're just bad. They're not shot well, and you've got all the other problems on top of that. But that's why the horror genre is very interesting, and that's why I think that every few decades it hits a real rough patch. If you go back to the 90s, you can actually pull up old newspaper articles, and there will be you can find headlines about films that were released in theaters and how they tanked. And you will see headlines about the genre as a whole. Horror is dying, and it was not performing well in theaters. It was not performing well on VHS, and we go through these phases where it seems like these guys run out of creative ideas. They run out of new things to do. And what's interesting though now is I've turned to the international market because there are a lot of foreign films out there that are amazing. You'll find some filmmakers that are doing things that are a lot different. And I think a lot of that is, where these guys are from. Maybe they didn't grow up with the same horror tropes that we did. They grew up with different stories. They grew up with different legends. Their whole point of view is different. So a lot of times...
My friend, I'm going to cut you off right there. We got to go to a commercial break here. As you're listening to Spaced Out Radio, Matt Molgaard is our guest. We're going to hop out for our first break. We'll be right back.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover Demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. If you're following along in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers, and of course, on Revolution Radio, the chat room is rocking tonight. Revolution Radio is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor. If you like the broadcasting that they are doing on Revolution Radio, donate today. Tomorrow night and Sunday, Spaced Out Weekend hops in. If you're new to the station, like Revolution Radio listeners are, we do Spaced Out Radio 7 days a week. My show goes Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, and James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin come in for Spaced Out Weekend Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific as well. We do this thing 7 days a week. Bill Cardwell in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Facebook. We're still waiting for a password for the SOR Space Travelers tonight. We're hoping you can get that in quickly, because you know the Space Travelers, they need their password du jour. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you can sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. We give you a lot of cool features, from getting your name put into private monthly draws, like Joe won the first one. You can also get private access to our website and so much more. Unlike the other guys who just give you access to their archives, not us. We're giving back to you here at Spaced Out Radio. You can also check out the SOR Space Wire by our news director, Eric Markham. Read our latest blogs. We have some talented writers, including yours truly, who write weekly. Click on the blogs tab. And if you're wondering about our music that we use, everything that we do is Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Bumblefoot, the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight we are talking horror and the genre of horror. Matt Molgaard is our guest. He's been studying it for a couple of decades now. I'm not going to say how long. Matt, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
good
you
to be
for sparing me the decades too.
And just so you know, listeners, we have changed phone lines, so we're on a little bit of a clearer phone line now, and we shouldn't be interrupted like we were with a couple of errors there. Not sure if it was Matt's line or my Skype, one of the two, but we think we've cleared that up. Right before the break, Matt, we were talking about creativity, or the lack thereof, because there's so many scenes that always seem to be the same when it comes to the horror film. You were getting into, right before I had to cut you off, about what was happening in other countries, namely in Europe, and how they're being a little bit more creative with their film.
Yes, absolutely. And I really think that, it just goes back to their history. We have our folklore, they have theirs. And for a long time, we didn't see a whole lot of international films coming over here. We just didn't see it. We didn't have a lot of American distributors that were picking them up. So for a long time, that was kind of a mystery to us. We had to really hunt down Dario Argento films to have a clue about giallo and these, these kind of murder mysteries that they had, and now there's stuff coming out of everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Japan puts out some crazy stuff. Norway puts out some crazy stuff. There's a lot of stuff, and I think maybe to those guys, maybe it's not super creative, but because we don't see some of the things that they're doing, it's creative to us. It feels like we have new genres or subgenres of horror here, and I love that. I think it's kind of freshened up the market a little bit. But now, as that happens, we also see a lot of American filmmakers looking at those movies and saying, wow, okay, this movie really paid off in this market. We're going to remake it over here, and we're just going to shoot it with American actors. But something happens. Something is lost. There's a magic that is lost when that happens, and there's just a lack of authenticity a lot of times. So it really falls, sometimes those remakes, they fall right back into that unoriginal category, unfortunately. But sometimes they get it right. Ring was a great example of a film, an American remake of a Japanese film that was very successful. The Ring was a creepy movie. It was one of the few films that actually scared me a little bit as a grown man. And then when I go back and I watch Ringu, the original Japanese version, you see it, and it's a very close. They're very, very similar, but it has a different effect on you altogether. It feels so much more natural and fluent when it comes from those guys as opposed to these remakes. So I think that there's obviously, you're spot on when you point out the fact that there's a dearth of creativity here in the American market. There's a problem there, but at the same time, you've kind of got to ask yourself, how far can we take this? How many different avenues can we travel to scare people? When do we run out? Is the real question, and do we run out? And that, I think, only time will answer that question.
What about classics like Dracula or werewolf movies? Have we tapped them out, or is there still room for movement in those with today's technology and today's creativity?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because for me, I'm a huge Universal monster fan. Like I'm a freak for Universal monsters. I adore them. So when I see, let's say, a movie like The Howling, I automatically think of The Wolfman. I automatically go back to that film. There's that connection, and even though those two movies are extremely different, you can see parallels between the two films. So I think that you can still almost remake those classic stories, and you can still bring a fresh quality to them. But it's really hard because some of those films have had almost a century, of existence. You can't. There's only so many things you can do with those kind of movies. I mean, there's only so many ways you can spin Dracula to make him feel creative, and it's really, it becomes hard. It becomes very hard to do that. A good example of a vampire film that was successful in feeling unique and different would be 30 Days a Night. That just the simple fact that Steve Niles, the man who wrote that story, said, I'm going to take the vampire who can only come out at night, and I'm going to put him in Barrow, Alaska, where they endure 30 straight days of darkness, all throughout the day, 24 hours a day. That was terrifying. It was a frightening thought, because we don't have 5, 6 a.m. to save us. There is no sunrise for that month, and that creates a completely different sensation. It's completely different from what you see out of 99% of these other vampire movies that come out. So it's hard to do that. It's hard to give those classic stories and those classic monsters a new spin that actually feels fresh, but it is possible.
What about animal movies? We've seen some good ones. Cujo was probably one of the classics, okay?
Absolutely.
But even if you go back just a few years, one movie that really got to me was Cloverfield. I haven't seen the second one yet, but the original Cloverfield absolutely scared the bejesus out of me, because it looked so real and so well done, and you just couldn't kill this damn thing, and I'm curious, is there still good monster films out there? Not the humanoid ones, but good for animals.
There are, and you know what? Cloverfield was a very, very good film. I think that J.J. Abrams he's one of the true visionaries today, and I think it might be hard for him to make a crappy movie. So that's a great pick, and there are a lot of those movies out there, but I don't think that they get as much attention. A lot of times, the good monster movies are independent features. They don't hit 3,000 screens. They don't air in the international market. They don't screen over there, so they're harder to find. You've really got to track them down. And since you mentioned not seeing the sequel to Cloverfield, I'm going to highly recommend that one for you, because you are a suspense guy. That movie is about suspense. I'm not going to say much to ruin the film, because if I say too much, I'll ruin the final act for you. But that is a very tense film, and John Goodman in that movie is amazing. He's amazing as it is. God bless the man's soul. He's incredible. He's the Big Lebowski. I'll always love him. But that is an excellent sequel, and which we talked about earlier. That's a great film. You should look into that one. I highly recommend that one.
When I get an opportunity, I will do that. Thank you so much for the recommendation. But what about other films? Okay, we look at the franchises that are out there. We've hit on those. We look at people who are trying to make a name and trying to get something else out there. What's left? What else can be created? We've tackled the ocean. We've tackled land. We've tackled mountains. And one movie that I got to admit I was a little disappointed in was The Devil's Pass, the story about the Dyatlov tragedy. I was a little disappointed with the ending on that. I actually had to go back and watch that again just to see what the hell truly happened. But when you look at that, are we reaching too far now? Is getting back to the creativity, I guess.
Sometimes we are. A good example of really trying to go too far to generate something new would be a movie like Frankenstein's Army. That is a movie that when you watch it, it's almost flabbergasting. You have trouble just absorbing what you're seeing, because it's so far out there. And I understand. I respect. And I'm blanking on the filmmaker's name, but I respect him for trying to do something different. But when you take a movie and you base it, you're telling a story in World War II, and all of a sudden you've got men that have been basically surgically modified into half monster creature things. It's far out. It's really hard to wrap your head around, and I think movies like that try too hard, you just can't. There's no connection. There's no connection, and it kind of does make you wonder what is left. What can we do? But I think a better question might be is the movies, the kind of movies that we've already explored. what are the ones that we haven't explored enough? What are the movies that what are the kind of movies that we can go and we can make great stories out of? And the ocean is a fantastic example, because if you really, really get down to it, there's only one great ocean movie, and you know what it is, I know what it is, it's Jaws. It's the only great one that I've ever seen in my life. And to me, that's wild, because so much of the world is water. It seems to me like there should be an endless supply of ideas right there. It's all there for our taking, but for some reason, we haven't been able to tap into it. We haven't been able to create the idea that works well with that concept. We just can't marry those ideas. All we've been able to do is create a horrifying shark, that just hunts people. That's what we've come up with. So my thing is, why are we having trouble expanding on those subgenres that are so small that they seem like they have so much potential? Why can we not tap into that potential? Why can we not build on that and create better films now? Because I've seen so many ocean movies that just they might be okay, they might be terrible. They're never anywhere remotely near as horrifying as a movie like Jaws. And Jaws, when you see Jaws, you really don't want to get into a large body of water again. You don't want to do it.
My friend, I live in an area where there is like 500 lakes within an hour's drive in any direction. It's ridiculous how many lakes are here. I refuse to even get in the lakes here, my friend.
Speaking of lakes, why don't we have an amazing, let's say, a Loch Ness Monster movie? Why don't we have? There are a lot of legends, and there are a lot of things that you can read about. These mythical creatures that are not. They don't live in the ocean. They live in smaller bodies of water. Why haven't we been able to create something special with those? And every now and then, you'll run into a movie that will really entertain you, but it won't frighten you. A good example of that would be a movie, Zombievers, which was you can tell just by the title, it's a comedic piece. It's about zombie beavers. And the movie is a blast. It's a lot of fun, but it's never frightening. It's good for a laugh. It's good to have a few beers while you're watching it and just let loose and not think about much, turn your brain off for a while, but it's not frightening. It's categorized as a horror film, but it's far more comedy than horror. So it's weird, because I really think that we have a lot of areas that we can explore still, but for some reason we're not finding the right angles. We're not finding the right ways to approach those subgenres to effectively make them scary. There's something happening, and I don't know what it is. Maybe those movies, I haven't stumbled upon them, but I don't believe they're even out there. And that's kind of sad, because you can find 10,000 slashers out there, but you can only find a very small handful of good water movies. How does that happen? I'm not sure.
We are going to mention the SOR Space Traveler's password now. Bill Cardwell has finally said it. Abomination is the password for the SOR Space Travelers. We change the password on a nightly basis, so if you're a member, Abomination is your password. Make sure you use it very, very wisely. Do you think zombies have been overdone? Everything is zombie this, zombie that. We have zombie walks now. I realize it's the the flavor of the last decade. But when I see something that has zombie, besides maybe Zombieland, I really liked that movie. But
it's a great film.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson and Bill Effin Murray.
Amazing.
Yeah,
yes.
What?
I'm with you so much on Zombieland or zombies in general. I run a website, horrornovelreviews.com, and I take in between 300 and 400 novel submissions every year to be reviewed. And I'm not joking. I would say about 40 to 50% of those novels are zombie novels. So it is not just film. It is, I mean, it's everything. It's everywhere you go. It's zombie this, zombie that. I still enjoy The Walking Dead. I enjoy that. Zombieland was a great film. A film came out last year called Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. It was a brilliant film. But they're so rare now to see a good one. And it's kind of sad because even George Romero, who, even though zombie films existed prior to Night of the Living Dead, Romero is generally considered the man who created zombies. He's generally viewed as the alpha of that subgenre. Even his later films in his Dead series lost so much luster that they don't feel special anymore. And I think that zombies need to take a very long hiatus. I wouldn't mind if zombies disappeared for about a decade, because they are so beaten to death, it's ridiculous. And it's hard to find good movies. It's even harder to find good books. And I don't care how you spin it, there's only so many ways that you can make a flesh-eating corpse interesting. There's only so many ways you can do it. And most of the time, I think people really get it wrong. Zombieland, that's one of the really rare examples where it's done perfectly. And the thing about Zombieland, when you look at the movie, it's not the zombies that are perfect. It's our characters, it's our survivors, it's Tallahassee, it's Columbus, it's these guys. They're what make the movie special. So it goes right back to that fact that if you do not have characters that you love, that you can relate to, you don't have a great movie. You don't have a special movie without that.
Well, let's also be true that anything that has Bill Murray in it is a classic right off the bat. I don't care how bad the movie is. As long as Bill Murray is in it, you know you have a winner. I have a question from Eric in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. He is asking, what do you think of the movie The Changeling with George C. Scott? Do you consider that one of the greats?
I would say it is an excellent film, but I'll be honest, it's been a while. It's been a long while since I watched it. I would need to return to it to really tell you, yes, I think it is a truly great film. But I can tell you, just from the loose memory I have of it, that it's a very good film. I remember it's very well shot. It's creepy. It's got some great atmosphere. It's a good film. Definitely not a bad film in the slightest. Definitely a film that I would recommend. It's a good film, for sure.
Eric is also wondering what your thoughts were if you've seen the movie Stakeland.
Stakeland, there you go. There is a good vampire film. And you know what's interesting is Stakeland kind of, it almost blends zombie and vampire. There are no zombies in the film. The major conflict is actually cannibals over vampires even. But the way the post-apocalyptic landscape, the visuals, Jim Mickle shot that film, and it looks like a zombie film. But then you throw in these terrifying vampires, and they are terrifying. They're ruthless as hell. And then you throw in these cannibals who are just as ruthless, but they're thinking. Their brains are functioning very well, which makes them even more hazardous. That's an excellent, excellent film. And I am very excited. They actually shot a sequel to that this year. They wrapped production on that earlier this year. They shot it in complete secrecy. No one knew this film was being made. No one at all. There were no media was told. No one was informed. Completely secretive. It's called The Stakelander, and that's going to be coming out next year. And I'm dying to see what they do with that. I'm a little bit nervous because Jim Mickle does not direct the film. However, Nick D'Amici, who wrote the film, the first film, Stakeland, he did write this sequel. So this sequel could be good too. I'm nervous, but I'm also optimistic about that. Stakeland gets a thumbs up for sure, though.
I like this comment in the Revolution Radio chat room tonight by Blasphemous Buddha. He is saying, Pokemon Go is the zombie apocalypse happening right in front of our eyes. So I have to agree. It's ridiculous. You know,
It is. I read an article. It might have been this morning. It was either this morning or yesterday about another clown, actually. And I can't recall what state it's happening in, but someone is dressing up like a super creepy clown, and they're following Pokemon Go. And wherever these people show up to chase these Pokemon or whatever the hell they do with this stuff, this clown pops up and scares the shit out of everybody. And I think it's a brilliant idea because, honestly, I'm not a gamer. I've never been a gamer, and I can't really understand the allure of Pokemon Go at all. I don't understand it. Full-grown men and women are out driving around in search of. I don't know what the hell they're searching for. It blows my mind, and it's definitely a dark time for the world right now. Thanks to Pokemon Go.
I just think it's funny that everybody plays it. Millions upon millions are playing it, but very few are actually admitting that they do.
You know what's crazy is my wife works at a hospital, and all they talk about, she says, all they talk about all night is Pokemon Go. So apparently people are starting to come out of their Pokemon Go shells. They're starting to take pride in this thing, and that scares me even more than anything.
Hey, let's get to the suspense side for a little bit. I would like to spend some time with there. My favorite director is M. Night Shyamalan when it comes to suspense films. What has he done so right to capture the suspense that people want to feel, whether it's The Village or Signs? And I'll be honest with you, man, you know, as someone who is a UFO and extraterrestrial experiencer, as in myself, Signs scared the living daylights out of me. It really did. But what does a director like him do different than, say, everybody else?
Well, Shyamalan is an interesting case because Shyamalan came out and his big explosion on the scene was The Sixth Sense. And after that, a lot of critics and a lot of fans have panned his films just almost gradually. With each movie he makes, people are bagging on him more and more. Oh, this is not special. It's generic. It's bland. I see it coming. But to me, I think the man is a genius. And I think he's a genius because he understands characters. And not only does he understand characters, but he understands what it takes to create an amazing twist. If you watch virtually any Shyamalan movie out there, he's always got an amazing twist at the end where you're just like, holy hell, I didn't see that one coming. I've been following this movie. I thought I was picking up on the clues that I should have been picking up on, and then he hits me with this, and it totally catches me off guard. And that's what he does. He keeps people on their toes. He gives you these characters that you really care about. He gives you this mystery that you're engaged in. You're following this mystery, and you want to know the answer. You want to know why these things are happening. But he's constantly, he'll throw out a red herring. He'll throw out a curveball. He'll throw out something that just leads you down this different path. And then he'll come full circle, and he'll bring it all right back around so that when he drops that twist, it feels like it should have been obvious the whole time. It feels like, man, I should have seen that coming. I should have known he was going to do that. I should have known what was going to happen with Bruce Willis at the end of The Sixth Sense. I should have known. I saw it in the beginning. I should have known, but we don't. And he just nails the intricacies of personalities. He focuses on them so much. I don't know if you watched his last film, The Visit, with the two children that go to stay with their grandparents, and their grandparents aren't the most pleasant people. You watch that movie, and you know the whole time that you should see what is coming. You should know what's going to happen. But you're also paying so much attention to those characters. You're also getting such a big kick out of these kids that you kind of lose some of the details. So when we do get around to that big twist, we've lost our connection with it because we're just so wrapped up in what these characters are experiencing that we forget to study the film a little bit. And we all study film a little bit. Most of us less than others, but everybody studies film a little bit. And Shyamalan is excellent at blending amazing characters with these deceptive notes throughout his script. They're always there. They're always minor, but you make note of them. You make note of them, and you keep making note of them, and you try to put it all together, but you miss sometimes the easiest answer. Sometimes it's the easiest answer he gives you, and that's not what you see coming because you're paying so much attention. He's brilliant. He's a one-of-a-kind filmmaker, no doubt about it. And I love the fact that every movie he makes pretty much fits into multiple different genres. Signs is a great example. That's clearly, there's a lot of science fiction in that film. There's a lot of mystery in that film and suspense. But it's also a little bit horrifying. When you see that alien, when Joaquin Phoenix is watching that TV, and they show that news footage, and you see the alien in the footage, it scares the hell out of you. It catches you so off guard. That's terror right there. That's a moment of terror. That's actually my wife's favorite film, and I've seen it about 1 million times. But it's a great movie. It's a great movie. Every time I watch it, I get sad that Mel Gibson's career fell apart.
You know what? I think with that movie, everybody got freaked out by this sound. Yes. You know, if you don't know what. No, we're not calling a horse here. You know, if you hear that sound in the middle of the night, you have aliens coming in. They're coming in the door. But you know what? What got me was, you know, I've always been big on aliens, and even before I started this show, I never expected, you know, that type of reality to happen to me. And I am an ET experiencer. Okay? I have had an extraterrestrial, believe it or not, and I have listeners who can attest to this, who've been with me since the beginning, can attest to this. I've literally been broadcasting this show where I've had an alien appear at my window. And wow. And I work out of my house, man. And you got to realize I use a pseudonym for a name. My neighbors don't know what I do. It's just one of those things that, I mean, to see the big black eyes of a gray right in front, and then when I think of the movie, you know, Signs, and I think, man, this is so real, this is so possible, because it wasn't Independence Day, or it wasn't the movie Aliens, or it wasn't, you know, something that was so Hollywood pro-America, I hate to use that term, but you know what I'm saying, that, yeah, you know, it's something that literally could happen. You know what I'm saying? And yeah. And I think that's why, if I were to give my top 10 list of films that I've ever seen, I think that's why Signs would be on there, because it could happen. And in the end, isn't that what we want? We want that plausibility.
Yes, absolutely. And another brilliant thing about Signs is the resolution. The answer to the problem is so simple. It's so simple that we don't think about it. We watch this child run around throughout this movie with this strange water obsession, and we just think, well, this kid is quirky, you know, maybe there's a little OCD in this kid, you know. And then, you know, when we learn how we can combat this issue, and we see that, it's so clever to me to just make it that basic. Because, I mean, if you think about it, aliens, if they were to come here and they were to take over the world or attempt to do so, the first thing people are going to think is, you know, what kind of firepower do we need to save ourselves? You know, nobody's going to think, let me go grab the hose. Nobody's going to think that. And those kind of details, those are what make Shyamalan special. Those weird little details. Signs was such a great film. It was... it's really hard to find fault in that film, and that's rare with any genre, any kind of film. It's hard to find a nearly perfect film. Definitely one.
Do you think more directors should try and take that route, because more people find, You know, we prepare. I guess what I'm trying to say is we prepare for the slasher films. We prepare for the horror films because we know what we're getting into. But when it comes to suspense, you really don't know what you're getting into. And like I said, we've touched a little bit on signs earlier on. We touched on Blair Witch. You look at Paranormal Activity, The Sixth Sense, The Fourth Kind, to name a few. Those are movies where it really makes you wonder because it could happen. And I know I've said that already this show a couple of times. But in The Fourth Kind, where people in Nome, Alaska were seeing owls everywhere, I have listeners who see owls, and they wonder, is that leading to something? Is it a precursor to extraterrestrial visitation? And it's been a very, very hot-button topic on this show. When it comes to aliens, do you think we're doing enough with them, or do you think it's untouched?
We're definitely not doing enough with them. We're not. And it's sad because I think that if you sit down, I think you could spend a couple hours and you could just brainstorm some ideas and you could probably strike gold. You could really probably come up with some amazing ideas. Would they be easy ideas to execute on film? Maybe not. But there's some neglect to the subgenre. There really is. And it's strange because people hold Alien on this pedestal. They hold Ridley Scott's Alien on this pedestal, and it's kind of that's where the bar was set. You know, how do we make a movie as impacting as this? But I think that filmmakers need to stop thinking like that. I don't think you need to compete with Ridley Scott. I don't think you need to try and make that kind of an Alien film. I think you just need to look at some other possibilities. And I think it would be great if we had some filmmakers who maybe had some experiences themselves, because I think those guys could probably create some horrifying stuff, some stuff that really is petrifying. Because what scares people? The unknown scares people. That's what scares us. You know, it's the stuff that we're completely foreign to, the stuff that we have no idea how to handle. That's frightening. And if there's anything in the world that we don't know how to handle, it's aliens. We don't know. There is no solid answer of what you do when you look outside and you see an alien looking through your window. There's no answer for what you're supposed to do in that moment. And we don't know, are aliens, are they menacing figures? You know, are they scoping out our planet with some ugly motives, or are they exploring? We don't know. It's crazy because, you know, I've read accounts from people who will tell you that, you know, aliens were damaging property, and I've read stories where people will tell you that aliens seemed extremely peaceful and only had the desire to communicate. It's such an unknown area that maybe that's what scares filmmakers. Maybe because it's so unknown, they just aren't certain of how to even approach the subject matter, because we don't get enough alien films. We don't get enough of them. And they have the potential to be so amazing. Signs is amazing. Ridley Scott's film is amazing. There's that potential is there, and it's pretty untapped, unfortunately.
What did you think of Christopher Walken's acting in Communion?
I'm going to be completely honest with you, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but I watched that with a buddy of mine who I hadn't seen in about 10 years, and we drank a lot of alcohol before we watched the film. And I enough that I don't think either one of us were able to appreciate it. And as I recall, when we checked it out, my whole motivation was Walken himself. That was my motivation, just to check out the film, because, I mean, that is a legend. So, unfortunately, I really can't give you a great answer on that one. And I know that's terrible to say, but every now and then you got to cut loose and have a few beers and let go of life.
You never go wrong with that. How about the television series V?
I've never seen it. I've never.
Oh,
checked
you
it
have
out.
to go back. You have to go back into the 80s and check that out, about reptilians that are putting on human skin to try and look very, human-like as they take us over.
I've read a lot of good things about it, and I like the idea behind it. It's just one of those things that I've never gotten around to checking it out, and it sounds like I need to, because I mean, really, I love aliens. Like, it's such a great topic, and it's one of those things where there's so much mystery behind it, because we know that aliens most certainly can be real. People who have experienced it know in their heart, and they know in their mind, that there are beings that exist that are not from this planet. They know that. But for all the rest of us, we're left to sit back and ask ourselves, do I believe in that? Could that be real? And when I ask myself, could that be real? I always have the same answer. Oh, hell yes, that could be real. That most certainly could be real. I'm not naive enough to believe that Earth is the only planet that has, life forms existing. I mean, think about it. We traveled to the moon. Why couldn't an alien travel to Earth? I mean, that's a very plausible thing for me, and I think I wish we had more alien films. I wish we had more alien on TV even. You go back and think about some X-Files. There were some amazing X-Files episodes centered on aliens. But we neglect them in film so much that it's kind of heartbreaking. It really is. You can see for every one good alien film, you've got 1,000 slashers. You've got 100 monster movies. It's one of those things that I wish that we would explore more, and I think there's a lot of potential there. It's just going to take the right screenwriters. It's going to take the right filmmakers, and it's going to take some studios that have a little bit of faith, because film always runs in cycles. Things are always hot for a certain period of time. We talked about zombies. Right now, zombies are red hot. I think they need to cool down. They're dead. They should be ice cold. Let's let them be ice cold for a while, move on, and tackle something else. An alien would, I think that would be an amazing thing to explore more. We need that.
What about when Hollywood, though, takes a potentially true story, okay, and they always use the saying, based on a true story. And I'm thinking of the movie Fire in the Sky here, since we're talking aliens, the Travis Walton story, okay, where when they had him gone for 5 days, they took the entire truth and they made it so Hollywood, of the experience that he had on the ship, that it really, when I look back on it now, I'm almost embarrassed for Hollywood that they would try and butcher what this man happened. I mean, his story was so incredible in the first place. You didn't have to doctor it up. Do we see too much of that now, these based on a true stories? I mean, we see the Conjuring films. I have had Andrea Perron from the original Conjuring. Her family experienced it. Looking back on the movie, they couldn't say anything for a couple of years, but she's very upset with the way it portrayed her family, it portrayed her father especially. It hurt her feelings. And Hollywood is good at doing that. Is there a line that just shouldn't be crossed when it comes to films that are based on a true story?
There is, but the problem is, when do you identify the cases that are legitimately based on true stories? Because you can take any story, find any one little element of that story. The whole thing can be fiction. Find one little element and find one example of something very similar that happened in life, and then you can tack that on there based on a true story. And that's where it becomes very blurry. And I don't like to ever see that in a film, because I always feel like, well, now I'm going to have to do a bunch of research to find out the real story to this. And then you do find out the real story, and you realize, boy, it's so different. They put out that movie Annabelle a year or two ago, and you look at the doll, and this doll is menacing, and the story is so evil. And then you research the story, and you get a look at the doll, and it's a Raggedy Ann doll, And to me, that Raggedy Ann doll, that being haunted, that having some power, that is far more terrifying than a doll that is done up to intentionally look menacing. So Hollywood always takes that, and they always run with it. I'm not sure. It would be probably fairly difficult to find a story, a film that was based on a true story, and track down the people who lived that and have them look at it and say, yes, that film was accurate. Because Hollywood glamorizes everything. For Hollywood, it has to be scary or it doesn't work. And it has to be, you know, everything has to be big. It's got to be in-your-face crazy, you know. And a lot of times they'll take characters and they will have zero regard for the actual characters, the actual people who live that. They have no regard for those characters. I read a little bit actually about The Conjuring, and what I had read, it just seemed like, okay, these characters on screen really are almost nothing like what I think I'm reading here about the actual people who lived through this. And it's wild because everything is just, it has to be so big, it has to be so over the top and so in your face, and I think it's very rare that we see accurate depictions of factual events. I think it's very rare, and it sucks that happens, but I don't think Hollywood will ever change that. I don't think they're ever going to bring it down and make it realistic, which is sad because sometimes the realistic films are the ones that are terrifying. I watched a Japanese film not too long ago called Noroi, and the whole film, it's a slow film, but because it's slow, the way they handle it, there are no big budget effects. It lends this air of authenticity to it, and it creeped the hell out of me. Just no Hollywood magic to it whatsoever, and it was so much more effective than all these movies you see that are done up and big and bold and clearly not what actually happened in real life.
And I get that, but when it comes to somebody who's doing The Conjuring, for instance, okay, where you're following the stories of Ed and Lorraine Warren, probably the most popular ghost hunters of all time.
Absolutely.
You really don't have to fall far from the script. Yet they seem that they have to almost plagiarize. They plagiarize part of the story, and then they exploit everything that didn't truly happen because they think it's a better storyline. The storyline is what has happened to this family that called in, the Warrens.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
it's written for you. You don't have to screw with it.
You don't. But Hollywood, there is, it's a strange climate in Hollywood, and I'm from Los Angeles, so I have a lot of experience down there. I spent a lot of time with a lot of filmmakers, a lot of performers, and what's crazy is a lot of times you'll talk to these guys and they're not happy with the films that they're making. A lot of times these guys will tell you, man, this is so far off that I'm not real pleased, but I'm being told this is what I'm going to do, or I'm going to get the axe and they're going to get a director in here who will make the movie that they want. They're going to make the movie that they think is going to sell. So a lot of times, when you see those movies, it's not necessarily the movie that the directors or the screenwriters wanted to give you in the first place. What some people don't realize is films, I would probably say 90% of films, they undergo a lot of rewrites. What you see on screen is not the story that was initially crafted, and that's just what Hollywood does. I don't know why, but they can't help themselves. They feel like if it's not so far over the top, we won't be frightened by it. They've forgotten that people are afraid of realism, and it's strange to me because I feel like I've dedicated so much of my life to film, horror in specific, but I feel like a lot of people in these bigger studios they just have no respect for the viewers. They really have no respect for the viewers and their intelligence. They just don't care. They have an idea in their mind of what is going to sell tickets, and that's what they're going to run with. And it's crazy because I don't know how you change that. I don't know how you alter that, because I think it should be altered. I think that sometimes some of these stories, would be a whole lot more frightening if they just told the real story.
I have a question from Cog in the SOR Space Travelers chat room on Facebook. He wants to know what your opinion is on Tommy Knockers and Stephen King in general.
I'm going to be honest with you. Tommy Knockers was not one of my favorite King novels, and The Transfer I didn't enjoy much at all. I just wasn't a fan of it. Stephen King, however, I think at this point he's put out a few stories that are a little bit less than amazing, shall I say. But I still think that when I hear that someone say the term master of horror, the first name that comes into my mind is Stephen King. That's the first guy I think of, because of all the stuff he's put out, he's pretty consistent. Because when you think about it, if you write 60 novels, you're going to have a couple duds in there. Like that is inevitable. No one bats 1,000. No one does that their entire career. Stephen King hasn't batted 1,000, but that's okay, because he's still he's an amazing storyteller. His work is just crazy. And for me, I would guess that I read somewhere between 50 and 60 novels a year, maybe a little bit more than that. So I've read countless King books, probably the vast majority of his library. And he's an amazing storyteller. And some of his stories work really well on film. Some of his stories don't. I don't think Tommy Knockers worked all that well on film. But then you take a story like Christine, for example. I think that worked amazingly well on film. But that was also a different time of filmmaking when practical effects were used, predominantly, and people were more interested in staying true to the source material rather than just dressing it up, putting the bells and whistles on it. So King is amazing. I'm not a huge fan of Tommy Knockers. I will always love Salem's Lot. I will always love Christine. There are a lot of his books that I will love, and a lot of them made excellent movies. And even though he hates The Shining himself, because he and Kubrick didn't see eye to eye on that one, I still think that's one of the most frightening films I've ever seen in my life.
We only got about 3 minutes left for it with you here, Matt, on Spaced Out Radio tonight. I would love it if you could give us maybe a top 5 or 6 of your top movies that people should watch if they want to be enthralled in the horror drama.
Okay. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say the first Halloween from John Carpenter. He still used suspense. He still told a real good story and had great characters. I'm going to say The Exorcist, and I think that's probably a pretty universal choice for most people. It's just a terrifying film. I'm going to also say The Shining as well. I think that's probably the greatest haunted house type of story that you can possibly tell. I'm going to go with Night of the Living Dead. It hasn't aged well, but I think that the social commentary in that film was unbelievable, and the finale is just jaw-dropping, and that will always be a special movie to me. And let me also go ahead, and I'm going to throw in a random pick here, a newer film, a slasher, nothing super creative about it, just a really, really well-made film. It's called Cold Prey, and it's a Norwegian film. And I'm going to list that film because it's terribly underrated. No one has seen it, and it's actually a brilliant film. It's done so well, it's just absurd, and people need to see that movie.
I appreciate you breaking down your top 5 there.
Hey, not a problem.
That was a quick 2 hours with you, my friend. Quick 2 hours.
It was a nice 2 hours. That was enjoyable for sure.
You know what? I'd like to bring you on around Halloween, if you wouldn't mind.
I would love to be on around Halloween. No doubt about that.
Okay, let's plan this for Halloween, because we only got about a minute left with you, Matt. We'll stay in touch. You figure out some real scary crap that you want to talk about, that maybe are true stories, maybe you're not, and we'll bring you back on for Halloween or around Halloween time so you could scare the hell out of us. How about that?
I got a few experiences I can share with you. We're going to do that for sure.
I look forward to it. Matt, I really appreciate you being on Spaced Out Radio and telling us all about the horror genre tonight. I think it was a real cool idea to do this show, and I'm glad we did. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will talk very soon.
Absolutely. Matt Molgaard, one other question I have for you. If people want to catch up on your reading or your stories or your research, where can they do that?
They can go to either one of my websites, addictedtohorrormovies.com or horrornovelreviews.com. I own both those sites. I run them. I update them daily, and there's some good stuff on there.
All right. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers. Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with the UFOR on the final Monday of every month. You can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us on this Friday night, early Saturday morning if you're on the East Coast. Tomorrow night and Sunday, James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin will be in for Spaced Out Weekend as we continue this show 7 days a week. Spaced Out Weekend, tomorrow and Sunday, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Tomorrow night, we're doing a little bit of a special show. I'm actually going to hop in with Uncle Jimbo and Elizabeth starting at 10 p.m. Pacific because we're going to give you a rundown of what we do here on Spaced Out Radio, especially with our new listeners as we have now partnered up with Revolution Radio here. And remember, if you are a listener with Revolution Radio, it is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Take the time to donate today. So we're going to break down kind of our experiences, who we are. That's all tomorrow night. So that way, you at Revolution, and those of you in the SOR Space Travelers Club, or just listening to Spaced Out Radio in general, and you're maybe a little bit unsure of who we are, what we're about, we're going to break it all down for you tomorrow night on Spaced Out Weekend with James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin. Hey, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. While on our website, you can read Eric Markham's SOR Space Wire. That is for everyone who wants to read some weird and interesting news. Check out our music man, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses. He is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. You can read our latest blogs, including yours truly, about where time goes, because it just seems to go so fast. And if you have the extra time, sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. With that, we give back to you. We give you access to a private section on our website for posting, private group interviews. We're setting up a monthly newsletter for you. And the best part, we have monthly prize draws that take part the last Friday of the month. Tonight, we are kind of focusing on horror and film. Matt Molgaard was with us the first 2 hours. Now we are joined by one of our features, Eric Squared. We bring in Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal and Eric Markham from the SOR Spacewire. Gentlemen, welcome.
How's it going?
It's good to have you guys here, and we always have a lot of fun when we're on the air, and one of the things that I always enjoy about chatting, whether or not it's about the topic of the night or just experiences in general, is I think we bring in a very competent crew. And I want to introduce you, Eric Cooper. You are the lead investigator and the founder of Forest Moon Paranormal out of Concrete, Washington. You guys aren't your ordinary paranormal group. You guys are a team of emergency responders for the paranormal. For the people who may not understand what that is, Coop, would you fill them in?
All right. Forest Moon Paranormal covers every aspect of the paranormal, from your UFO and alien abduction, which is my specialty. I've been researching the UFO and alien abduction phenomena for well over 20 years. So that's pretty much my field. Then when it comes to the spirits, hauntings, and entities, we utilize mediums. We utilize fog paranormal. We have a Bigfoot specialist. And we cover conspiracy. Now, just to break it down, we don't go to your normal hot spots. We're not really interested in running out there and proving that there's paranormal, because we pretty much already know what exists. Our goal, and usually to break it down, when we get a phone call, our client is in tears, because usually by the time they find us, they've already gone through other groups. They've already gone, and they already know something's there, but they don't know how to get rid of it. And that's our job. That's where we come in. And whether it's an alien abductee, someone that describes what they're going through, and it turns out they are an abductee, that's where we come in. And that's why Dave calls us the emergency responders, because it's kind of what we are. So I think that sums it up in a nutshell.
And Eric Markham, you're the newest member of the Spaced Out Radio team. You run the SOR Space Wire, looking for the weird, the insane, the wacky in the world of weird news. You're also a scientist, educated. You work in the medical industry. So you've seen your fair share of strange as well.
Oh, yeah. I worked in a hospital where they had a ghost. And the old hospital got closed, and they brought a pickle jar full of smoke from one hospital to the new hospital as a symbolic way of transporting the ghost with them. But that was the old Robertson County Hospital in Springfield, Tennessee. But they were convinced that there was a ghost there.
It really is a field where people like to be scared. People like to be really inundated with that feeling of fear and that feeling of being taken to that next level where their goosebumps are raising all over their body. You heard Matt Molgaard, Eric Cooper, for the last 2 hours on this show talking about what people like about horror, what makes a good horror movie. I asked him this question, and I'll ask you the same thing. Do you prefer the horror genre, or do you prefer the suspense that goes behind it, much like an M. Night Shyamalan type movie?
Yeah, I think I like an M. Night Shyamalan. I'm more of the psychological thriller type. I don't know, it takes a lot to make me jump. It really does. I prefer the psychological thriller over the blood and gore. Doesn't impress me none.
I would say I am the exact same way, because I like being, stuck in a position on my lazy boy chair or on my couch, just absolutely afraid to move, because there is something very plausible that could happen, whether it's ET abduction, whether it's a dog like Cujo running through a door and all of a sudden attacking,
right,
or grizzly bears or something along those lines, because where I live, way out in the wilderness, it is possible that it could happen. Anything could happen. Now, how about you, Eric Markham from the SOR Spacewire? You mentioned earlier tonight that you are a major horror movie fan. Does not surprise me. I don't know why, but it just doesn't. Do you prefer the slasher type film, or do you like the suspense?
I like the suspense. I think that like the original movie Alien, there probably wasn't 2 minutes of footage during the whole movie where you actually see the alien. It was always just around the corner, just barely seen. Or you take a movie like The Changeling, where George C. Scott's playing, plays a musician, composer, who recently lost his family, so he moves to the other side of the country to get away from, his history. He's in a conservatory in his house playing this piano, hits the key, and this note's dead. Well, then he gets called away, and all of a sudden that key strikes itself and sounds the note that it should have. That moment in that film, even talking about it, makes the hair stand up on my head. It was just the suspense. That movie was one of the scariest movies I ever saw. Still good today. And there's almost no special effects. There's no gore at all. There's one car accident scene, but even it is PG at best. I mean, it's not a slasher gore Freddy Krueger type movie. It's all suspense, writing, and the way the actors portray the characters. George C. Scott did more with facial expressions in that movie than most modern actors can do with 10 pages of script.
Yeah, I think some of the older movies are better than some of the most of these newer ones. We were just talking about that just before we came on. Did you ever see Dolls? It's an 80s flick. No one really that well known, but it was well done.
That sounds familiar.
I never saw it.
That came
really?
out.
You've got to check it out, because I mean, for an 80s flick, it was about just to give you without spoiling anything. It's just about strangers that in a thunderstorm wind up in this mysterious mansion with this old couple, and they disappear if they don't like toys, basically. And that's just it in a nutshell.
Interesting.
It's a good flick. You need to watch it, because for being an 80s flick, it might even be late 70s. I think it was early 80s. But for special effects, it was well done.
I read an interesting stat. I'm a big fan of the CHIVE. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the CHIVE or have been on their website. It is fantastic. And every now and again they post some weird and strange facts. And I read this one just yesterday, which was when they changed their crew going into wintertime, when it's about to hit winter in the South Pole, the scientists over there have a tradition that started a number of years ago where the crew that is going to be there over the winter, their first night there alone, they have to watch the movie The Thing. And then they follow that up with the new version of The Thing back to back. So this is their tradition that they have settled down there. And it's kind of a neat tradition, because The Thing You know, I remember watching that. I was 10, 11 years old. One of the first horror movies I ever saw, probably the number 2 after Jaws, that my sisters force-fed me in front of the television to watch, and to this day I still hate going in the ocean. But the whole point is, it is kind of interesting how people use horror movies, Eric Markham, to really push their own limits, especially in the environment like that, like the Antarctic, where the thing was supposedly filmed.
Yeah, it sort of primes you for what's to come. Hopefully,
right?
It's an on and off project, but years ago, H.P. Lovecraft wrote a book called At the Mountains of Madness that has an Antarctic expedition that uncovers a civilization that predates humanity. And it doesn't, I don't want to spoil it in case anybody's never read it or if the movie gets made, but it doesn't end well.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to do it. Guillermo del Toro wants to do the movie, but he's been feuding with the studio because he wants to go R-rated because it is sort of a violent story. But they don't want to. They don't think a R-rated horror movie is going to be right. And when Prometheus came out, the storyline was similar, and he wasn't sure if he was going to make the movie because it'd be too much like Prometheus. But I'm hoping he'll do it. It's a hard sell because there's no love interest and there's no happy ending. Crap is not good in that. It just doesn't end well.
And Coop, that's kind of the good part of the whole horror genre is, you want to see that gore, that blood and guts. You want to be able to see, what imagination some director has to come up with, because it is unbelievable, some of these things that are happening out there on film.
It is. I think, let's see, in the last 5-10 years, the only movie that was actually creepy to me was The Strangers.
I didn't.
Have you seen that one?
No,
well, that one
too, and I never got a chance.
That one, yeah, it's not even a storyline, but yeah, when they open the door and they say, "Why are you doing this?" and the strangers say, "Because you were home." Oh my God! Yeah, that one was kind of creepy. And as far as blood and gore goes, the only one that ever got to me, again back in the late '80s, would be Hellraiser.
Loved Hellraiser.
The original Hellraiser, the first one. And it wasn't even so much Pinhead as I remember one point, and I still remember it. But there was some kind of creature. She opened some kind of portal. And there was like a worm-looking thing that came chasing her down. That is the one that got to me. It wasn't even so much Pinhead or the other ones, because I actually thought they were cool.
Oh, the Cenobites, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Those were creepy looking.
My favorite line, "Time to play." Gotta love Pinhead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You gotta love it. It absolutely, it was fantastic. It really was. So let me ask you this then. As we are talking about, the films that are more, creepy and scary, like Blair Witch, like Fire in the Sky, like The Sixth Sense, and I'm not just saying M. Night Shyamalan movies, but along those lines, the suspense type films. What would you like to see done on a film? And Coop, we'll start with you on that. And let me give you an example first. I would love to see Hollywood take on a movie about black-eyed kids, because I think they could use their imagination really, really well in there, because nobody knows what the hell is happening with black-eyed kids. Nobody knows what they are, who they are, where they come from. I think it would be a great suspense/horror type film. What would be one you would like to see, Coop?
Well, that would be a good one, too. But I don't think they've done it yet. I'm not sure, but I'd like to see one about all the missing thousands in the National Forest. Based on David Paulides. I would like to see that done. Realistically. Not just, I mean, and of course they're going to throw their twist, their movie twist, but I'd like to see it done realistically based on fact. And of course that's a hard one to do, but that is the area I would like to see done.
That sounds interesting, but I would love to see that take, if I could throw one step further into that. Butch Witkowski, who comes on here the final Monday of the month from UFOcop.com, one of his intel sources states that there are 1.3 million people that go missing every year in the United States alone. Out of those, they can't account for about 56,000 of them. I would love to see someone play off of that, because Butch, along with his FBI informant, tend to believe that many of them are no longer on this planet.
I would agree with that.
And I think throwing in Paulides' story along with those statistics, you'd make one hell of a thriller for a film.
Yeah, you would. You definitely would. That's where I like to see it go, though.
How about you there, Dr. SOR Spacewire?
Oh, I was thinking about an answer. Well, Coop kind of got me on that one. That's scary. Coop and I think too much alike.
That's why it's always fun being on the show together.
It's almost like talking to myself with a different voice. I like the idea of the missing thing. I would like to see somebody do the Dyatlov Pass with the facts. Yeah, the Devil's Pass, because there's something really, when you read just the facts about that, something heinous happened. Whether it was the KGB wiping out some people that saw weapons tests they shouldn't have, whether it was the Yowie, whatever it was, those people...
Yeah.
You don't cut your way out of a tent and run naked into the Siberian winter unless you think you're going to die if you stay in that tent. Something scared the life out of those people.
And going by the last pictures that were taken on that camera roll.
Oh, that fuzzy, that creature in the back.
Some say it was
there's a shadowy figure that's looking behind a tree at them in the distance. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, there's two of them. There's one like that looks kind of like a spacecraft. It's more like an orb light. And then the other one, looks like a Bigfoot in the background, kind of.
Well, the crush injuries they found on the one person, it was just like some huge hammer had splattered. All the internal organs were ruptured, the bone. The pathologist who started that case actually disavowed. He wanted no connection because he came out later and said what they told me I had to say was not the truth. So there's a guy, I heard him not too long ago interviewed, and he thinks what his research has led him to believe is that they witnessed a weapons test or something that they weren't supposed to, and that the KGB just sort of had to tie up the loose ends because there were weapons. There were wounds. One of the people had a wound consistent with getting jacked in the jaw with an AK-47 butt.
Yeah, but that doesn't make for the reason the CIA isn't going to pull out someone's tongue. The CIA, I mean, there were bodies up there, Eric Markham, that were so badly mangled internally, and yet there was not a scratch on the outside of those bodies.
Right.
Well, now, the tongue that was gone, that could have been predation because they were out there quite a while before they were found.
But they also compared that one to the cattle mutilations in that the tongue wasn't just cut out. I believe if I remember right, the tongue was actually lasered out, just like the cattle mutilations were.
I hadn't read that, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
The one movie on the Dyatlov Pass that is out there, The Devil's Pass, it's called. I saw it on Netflix. It got, it started off so awesome, and much like the Blair Witch or something along those lines, where it's, all first-person camera. It looked really cool, and then it just got weird from there. And to me, it was very hard to follow. I didn't really enjoy the latter half of the movie where all the suspense and thrill happened on that, where it looked like there were skinwalkers running around. But I still think that there's more to that. I don't think it was a weapons test. That's my own personal, but who knows, man? I'm a conspiracy theorist, so what the hell do I know?
Right.
I know James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend would be shaking his head. There goes Dave, the conspiracy theorist, going at it again. But, it's one of those things where you just literally have to just throw your hands up in the air and say, well, what could it have been? And I do believe there is an answer out there.
It feels more like alien to me, but that's just me talking. I mean, and of course I'm going to say that because I'm the alien guy. But it does feel more like alien to me because I don't see Bigfoot doing anything like that. I'm with you, Dave. I don't see CIA or KGB or no. It feels alien.
And the fact that people had climbed that mountain to ski that mountain previously, it just makes me, and after that, it makes me really question the whole weaponization portion of that, because that was a mountain they were familiar with. That's why they were going up there. They were prepared for it.
Right.
Yeah, they were experienced. They were all experienced winter campers. It was a hobby of theirs.
Yeah, and the skeptics sitting there trying to say it was an avalanche. No, that wasn't no avalanche. Avalanche doesn't cause crushing injuries like that, and it doesn't cut your tongue out.
That's true.
Agreed. Robert Rose in the SOR Space Travelers has a good movie idea. He's saying, I'd like to see a movie about hybridization.
That'd be good.
That'd be very good.
They skirted around with that on X-Files quite a bit.
Well, they did with...
it was an underlying theme.
Yeah. And if you look at The Fourth Kind, they kind of discussed it with the alien abduction theme, but yes and no. But yeah, I think X-Files hit it pretty good. I was really disappointed with the newest series, or the newest season they did. That was a disappointment for as much as they were pushing it.
I never watched it. You know what? I continued my streak of never watching an X-Files show. I don't know. Wow. It's weird because back in the day when it was on a weekly basis, I never really got into it. I wasn't into these topics. I tried watching it because everybody was talking about it, and I just never really got onto it. Now, look at me. Here I am hosting a radio show on a nightly basis talking about all this weird crap as well.
We'll just call you Fox.
Oh, I don't have that good of hair.
Oh, I know, isn't it? That's just, mine's falling out, and that SOB's got his share and mine.
I
hate
David Duchovny.
Uh-huh. Kind of like his old Red Shoe Diaries there.
Now, this one wasn't so scary as it was intriguing, and that was Cowboys and Aliens. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I went to see that one at the $2 cinema here in Winston.
I actually liked that one.
I enjoyed it. It was like a guilty pleasure. I actually, because there was a little bit of Zacharias Sitchin in there, and that they were coming for the gold, and they touched on a lot of insider stuff on that.
It was interesting.
Are either of you guys surprised that nobody has really tackled a major motion picture on Nikola Tesla?
Yeah. They came close. They They did a little bit when they, what was the name of that stupid movie? Had Christian Bale. I think it was Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale. And no, it was, it was about a magician, and he went to Nikola Tesla to have a gimmick built.
Sorcerer's Apprentice?
No.
That was a Mel Gibson.
Not The Illusionist, but David Bowie played Nikola Tesla. And if they were ever going to do the biopic, he would have been perfect to, when he was alive, he would have been perfect because he played him with a sort of a silent, quiet dignity. But I cannot for the life, let me remember, The Prestige. The Prestige, that was it.
Way to pull that out at the last moment.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but that was, but yes, I would love to, especially some of the more like the Death Ray and just some of the stuff he was supposed to have come up with. Totally convinced that he was talking to aliens, extraterrestrials through his radio. And the best thing about doing a real big budget movie about Nikola Tesla would be finally putting the Marconi invented radio myth to bed. All Marconi did is took a bunch of Tesla's patents. He stole Tesla's patents, thinking, well, I'm over here in Europe, he'll never catch on. Bull.
Well, that, and you don't see too much on Hitler and his super weapons or his. You don't see a whole lot of his stuff.
No, and he did. He had some advanced stuff. The bell,
he had some amazing. Yeah, the Foo Fighters.
The Glock. The Foo. Well, the Foo Fighters were actually messing with Allied and German, so they're not. I'm not so sure that the Foo Fighters were his.
Right, and they very well could have been UFOs, like is there. But I also put that with the Germans to an extent.
Yeah, it might have been like some kind of. I don't know. That was. Well, they had enough actual stuff they were working on. There was a couple of brothers called the Hortons, and Skunk Works they actually were commissioned by, I think it was History Channel or Discovery. They got a hold of the blueprint for this flying wing that these two guys had developed, the Horton brothers, that it came a day late and $1 short. Well, they built this thing to spec. The Northrop Skunk Works built this thing to spec, and it was a more stable flying wing than anything Jack Northrop had ever invented. It was nearly radar invisible. Had that aircraft come a year or two sooner, it would have been a lot more, because the first of their rocket really couldn't do anything. A bomber, it couldn't be hit because it was flying so. But by the same token, it didn't do much damage because it was flying too fast to get a target. It was more of a shock and awe weapon. It's like, holy crap! Look how fast that thing goes. Makes a P-51 look like it's parked on the runway. Yeah, they had enough real super weapons that you could do a movie about that, and it'd be scary and how close they came.
I've got to bring up Cloverfield. Have you seen? Have either of you seen the new Cloverfield?
No, I haven't.
I want to.
Oh my God, it's a mind blower, and I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to spoil it.
Oh, I like the original. I'm not a big fan of found footage films.
I did too, but now I'm not going to spoil it at all. But they're supposed to be making a whole series of Cloverfield movies.
I mean, can they make a monster any uglier than the original Cloverfield monster? Like, come on.
I don't know. Some of the kaiju out of Pacific Rim were pretty creepy.
Oh, okay. Since we're on Alien, Battleship.
I play it every day.
Oh my God, you got to see Battleship. Battleship was cool.
The one with Liam Neeson, because they made a grade B version of it called Navy Ships or something like that. It was. You
watch Battleship because you're gonna love the end. Because the end, you being Navy, you're gonna love the end of it.
They sink the Nimitz. No, just kidding. I've got. I was on the Nimitz, and that was, you either loved it or hated it. Okay, I'll have to check that out. That's the one, yeah. That's got Jersey, like a Wisconsin class battleships in it. I'll be all over that.
They use an old battleship, and you just got to watch it. But they're supposed to be making a whole series of movies of Cloverfield, and they're all going to be different completely.
Brittany brings up a very cool topic that would make a great suspense film, and the topic would be on Edgar Cayce.
Oh, that would be interesting. Prophet. Yeah, that would be interesting.
I think
they would just stick to and not try to go overboard with it. The man was interesting enough if you just tell the truth.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is, and like we discussed with Matt Molgaard in the first 2 hours of the show, you look at the Conjuring series. I mean, I did a 4-hour interview with Andrea Perrin, whose family was the family in The Conjuring, and the way that they, in the family's opinion, absolutely made them look like fools. Do you really want to be tied to something like that if you're not going to have Hollywood show any type of accuracy whatsoever? And the story is freaky enough as it is before Hollywood has to, turn a screw a little bit tighter on this part and, change an ending on that part, and create conflict here. And the family was pretty upset with how the movie came out because it is based on a true story. And the key word there, based on a true,
right.
Loosely,
extremely loosely.
Yeah, they always leave that part unsaid.
Mm-hmm.
So you go for it, and you give permission for these Hollywood people to come in and tell your story. I mean, Travis Walton, there's another one. For 15 years, for 15 years after Fire in the Sky, we didn't know what the truth was, and he's come out the last couple of years saying, no, the movie was wrong. The movie didn't get it at all. You know what I'm saying?
Peter Robbins just redid his story, and it's been released this year.
Yes, I have yet to see that. I want to see that. I believe it's on Netflix. Or somewhere online where you can view it, and I think that's what we want to see, because it's sad when these people have to go put out these remakes of truly almost like documentary style where they have to tell the truth when it comes to Hollywood, ruining the momentum that the story could really have. Mm-hmm. It is sad in a way.
And one of the things about the whole Travis Walton thing, there was another abduction similar. A couple guys, Calvin Parker and...
That was the Pascagoula, Mississippi case, I believe.
Yes, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. And they just sort of got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, that'd be a good movie too, because I believe, the Allagash is another one. There was another one where the guys were in a lake and they saw a light in the sky. They saw their bonfire on the beach, and they saw the light in the sky. It came over them, and then next thing they knew, they were in their boat and the bonfire was out.
Ooh, lost time.
I believe that was the Allagash one, and the other one you're talking about is Pascagoula. There's several in that same time area.
Wow. And I believe one of them actually went on, I'm thinking it was Calvin, went on like Johnny Carson or one of the talk shows and underwent hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much broke down on the set. Well, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, but it seemed like everybody came away from that show thinking, holy crap, this guy, something upset him.
Right. And
give me a minute to throw some specimens on. I'll be right back in under a minute.
Well, make sure you toast both sides there, Eric Markham. That's all I'll say. For people wondering what Eric Markham does, he actually works in a hospital laboratory at night in North Carolina. So he's, doing the double duty tonight. Laboratory worker, playing with blood and specimens, apparently, and as well as SOR Spacewire news director. He wears a tight cap.
He's multitasking.
Multitasking is the answer there. So we do have Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal with us. Eric, since we've been kind of talking about horror here, and you kind of deal with emergency cases, and you're more of an alien guy who deals with alien cases, what are you hearing out on the street? What are people having done to them that they are reporting to you?
Let's see. Nothing. I have nothing to report new. I have nothing to report new. It's weird because back in the 90s, even early 80s, they could remember dreams. And it seems in this day and age, most abductees aren't getting dream activity.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
why do you think that is?
They're either fixing their technology to where, because, you have missing time. You have most abductees have no conscious recall. And that's because of, in my opinion, their technology of erasing your memory. But they can't stop dreams. And back in the hybridization program, most abductees were dreaming of being on the ship and dreaming of their abduction. They would see the light, they'd see the UFO, and then all of a sudden they're in their bed. Now it's funny because in some cases their underwear be put on backwards, or in one case the guy actually was able to fight and they didn't put up with it. They put him back, but they didn't put him back where he was supposed to be. He found himself naked in his college dorm yard. But I think their technology has either gotten to where you don't know what's going on other than you wake up with scoop marks, you wake up with puncture marks, you wake up with a nosebleed, things like that, or you notice that there's missing time. That's where I would go with that, is their technology has gotten better to where they've got your mind erased.
Well, have they gotten now to where if they're erasing dreams to where they're wiping out the memory to where your brain can't even reassess and dream, is it getting harder to pull it out through hypnosis? Are they getting to the point where they can actually more or less wipe the brain clean of the entire
here's where I stand with hypnosis. I mean, I'm leery a lot of times of sending abductees to hypnotherapists, because unless you actually know the hypnotherapist and they are, in your mind, accredited, it's too easy to send an abductee that wasn't an abductee originally. It was just weird dreams. And all of a sudden, because the hypnotherapist doesn't know what he's doing, now they've become an abductee because that thought has been planted in their mind.
False memory.
Right. And the thing you look for is that hypnotherapist asking leading questions. They should usually be a yes or no.
Right.
And I mean, I will always stand behind David Jacobs. He's been doing it since the 70s. You're not always going to get David Jacobs, but I would get a referral from David Jacobs.
So you think it's still in there? Let's say we have a hypnotherapist who knows what he's doing, not going to ask the leading questions. They can, even though the abductees aren't dreaming anymore, the information is still
somewhere.
Okay.
That's interesting. I didn't know that there were people who were actually missing out on their dreams when it came to abductions.
A lot of them can, yeah. And the first thing I tell anyone that thinks they've been abducted is start a dream journal. If you are dreaming, you want to start, just get it doesn't have to be anything special, just grab yourself a notebook, put down the date, the time, and I always encourage you to put the weather.
What does the weather have to do with
it? How do you explain that? The weather can influence your dreams. Well, you know, a thunderstorm,
barometric pressure,
clear night, whatever. Right. It can affect dream activity or your REM sleep.
How about moon cycle? That as well.
Moon cycle too. But you see, I can figure out the phase of the moon just by the date. I'm not going to ask them to put too much, you know. I can figure out the moon cycle on a calendar. That's why I just make it. I just make it simple. Just remember the date, the time.
When you start looking things over, though, do you see any kind of correlation with moon cycle and dream activity?
Full moon, yeah.
Okay.
I find that
same
intriguing.
in my profession. You know,
I think
full moon Friday and Saturday nights are ungodly.
Yeah, and I'd say that's mostly because of energy.
Do you think that there should be more Hollywood study into what these movies should go through? Especially if you're going through the cycle of hot button topics. Because I would love to see a good Bigfoot movie. Not a B-rated, not one that went straight to DVD, you know, but I would like to see a good Bigfoot movie, you know, have Bigfoot really, you know, you take the story from Ape Canyon in the Mount St. Helens area. Those are some pissed off Bigfoot there. I would love to see a story on that.
I would like to see a Bigfoot based on the First Nation stories.
Yes.
That's what I'd like to see. Not this. I mean, you've got good researchers out there. Don't get me wrong, but I would like to see a story, see a movie based on First Nations legends about Bigfoot.
Yeah, because he's not always a nice guy in the Bigfoot in the First Nations.
No.
I think the Cheyenne have a story where they actually trapped some in a cave and burnt them alive because they kept stealing and eating their children.
Mm-hmm.
There's some bad. Bigfoot gets some bad press with some of the. I think the Shoshone, the Cheyenne, and one of the other. It won't come to me, but there's. You know, they have a tradition of not getting along with Sasquatch, but then you got the ones like the Cherokee and some of the ones that, you know, say that during their dances, the Bigfoot actually come out and watch them do their ceremonial dances, their rituals.
Yeah.
So you've got two sides of a coin here.
I would like to see a movie based on Skinwalker Ranch.
That would be a good one as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's something going on out there.
And for those that don't know about Skinwalker Ranch, it is a ranch in Utah that is owned by Bigelow Industries now. But it's a ranch that is reputed to have UFO sightings, alien sightings, as well as skinwalker sightings. What's out there? Potentially a portal? Who knows? But it's highly secure. It's about as secure as Area 51, damn near. And
Bob Bigelow's got the money for some hellacious security.
Yeah, so good luck getting out there to investigate anything.
What do you think is happening out there? Do you think there's actually weird spiritual creatures out there? Or are you like me where you think that they're securing that area because there's some weird type of hybridization or human genetic testing going on there?
Wow, that could be...
That
could go either way.
A cheap one. That could go either way. Because if you, from what I've seen because I mean, Jesse Ventura went out there with conspiracy theory, and he probed it. You know, they walked the fence line and whatnot, and they actually saw a little car come, driving around watching them. But are they? I haven't seen any buildings unless there's, an underground facility out there.
Well, I imagine, I think since the advent of the satellite, the spy satellite, probably most anything you want to keep hidden's got to go underground now.
Mm-hmm.
With our guide, I went to the Smithsonian Udvar Hazy Annex out by Dulles Airport, where they've got an SR-71, and our guide had been in Army Intel. And pretty much that the SR-71, whose main job was fly too fast to be shot down and fly too high to be shot down and take pictures. Well, you don't really need that when you've got all these spy sats that can see if you've got dandruff on your head from 150 miles up.
Or what brand of cigarette you're smoking.
Right. So
I will never forget, near my hometown where I grew up in Abbotsford, British Columbia, they have one of the largest air shows in the world. And the SR-71, up upon its retirement, would always do a flyby. But in 1986, it actually landed at our airport. And one of the pilots said on the air, he goes, "Our cameras are so powerful that from 85,000 feet or 80,000 feet, we could tell you what brand of golf ball you're using on the green before you putt your final putt on the 18th hole."
Yeah. And in Iraq we had these, they call it the spy blimp, and it was weird because they said it was for weather. Yeah, I don't think so. They wouldn't even tell us what it was for. But it was a huge blimp, and it hovered above our FOB, our base. And we were, this is when I was in Talifa, or Talafar. They say it's pronounced Talifa, and it was right on the border between Syria and Iraq. And yeah, I saw some of the pictures that thing took. They could be 10 miles away in the city of Talifa, where they're probably about 6 months before we got to Talifa. They were actually finding caches of weapons, and they were doing training, terrorist training and whatnot. But yeah, they could be sitting on the rooftop or sitting in an alley, and we could see them just from the blimp. We didn't even need drones for that one.
Wow. Well, I've heard that the triangular UFO that's been spotted is actually a covert operations blimp-style aircraft, and that's why it's so quiet. It uses ducted fans to propel it. That's one of the theories I heard. I don't know. Seems kind of convenient, but hey.
Right. Yeah. If it's a convenient story, it's probably BS.
One of the things about a blimp, though, you could make such a good radar invisible platform because of what you have to use to build one for a lighter than aircraft.
Mm-hmm. And it was funny watching them move, because as soon as they saw a dust storm coming. That thing came down. It came down real quick.
That's an expensive balloon with helium in it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
With
you know
huge
what?
Ropes.
I've always talked to people and friends, even before I got into this, there's always something interesting to know that when the United States military retires something like the SR-71, which really was not, it wasn't out of date. Let's face it. Can we agree on that? It was not out of date. It could have been, it could have been like the B-52, where it had another shelf life of another 20 to 40 years. I think the B-52 is going to be the only aircraft to go 100 years in service. But when you look at it, it's a scary, scary thought when you think, if they're retiring this aircraft while it is in its prime, what else is out there?
That's what our guide said. He was one of his Russian counterparts. They were at a place, I forgot the exact nature, convention or summit of some kind. And when the word came out that we were retiring the SR-71, this Russian guy told our guide, well, if you're retiring that, I hate to think what you've replaced it with. So
it really, really makes you think, and and you know what? That's the stories I love to do on this show. I would love to get someone on here to maybe say, okay, what replaced it? Is it the TR-3Bs that people are seeing around that look like the black triangles? Is it, another type of aircraft? Because I don't believe that it's just spy satellites.
No.
I really don't.
I still say my favorite aircraft's the Warhog. There's no other sound like it. Oh my God, there's no other sound like it. And if you hear a Warhog, you know your ass is covered. Yep. It sounds like a bird.
To fly over my place in Tennessee. That weird ducted fan motor. That is, I love those aircraft.
Gentlemen,
I'll tell you what, we had them on our base in Iraq, and there's no better feeling knowing that thing was going up in the air, because you knew you were covered.
You knew you were coming home at least one more night.
Yep.
Yeah. What a great aircraft to fly, too. I mean, it's armored.
Mm-hmm.
There was, not too long ago, I actually taped it on my DVR. It was a little documentary about the Warthog, and they showed the gun. It's like, we've got this gun. Let's design an aircraft around it so we can fly it.
You definitely do not want the whole 9 yards from that one. Gentlemen, I got to call it a night, man. It's that time of the night. We're going to start shutting.
Great.
We got Bumblefoot rocking on the Spaced Out Radio side, and I know we got to start winding things down with Revolution Radio tonight. Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, appreciate you taking the time. Eric Markham from the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com, appreciate you not taking a stool sample while doing this show from your laboratory. Really do appreciate it.
You won't believe it just came through the door now.
Gentlemen, I hope you guys show up tomorrow night. I'm going to be on with Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, and Elizabeth Anglin for tomorrow night's edition of Spaced Out Weekend, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, as we get things going. And we're going to spend some time with the Revolution Radio crowd tomorrow night, including our lovely SOR people who've been following us and helping us grow as well. But we got to let the Revolution people know who we are as well. So I hope you guys attend that one as well.
I'll be here.
Yep, be here.
All right, guys. You take care. I'm going to wrap up this show. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. Thank you so much for joining in. I will be back in the hot seat on Monday night, Spaced Out Weekend, the next 2 nights in a row. Elizabeth Anglin and Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, are in the hot seat. Make sure you stick around and join us. And if you like what we're doing and you're new to this show, let us know. We want to hear from you. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Email me, Dave at spacedoutradio.com. Good night.